Hi, we're back, and our first guest this morning is an author and a very lovely lady named Linda Scheller. Linda, so glad to have you here this morning.
Thank you so much, Carol, for having me on the show, and thank you everyone who's watching. It's a real honor to be able to talk about my new book.
Yes, this is exciting. I always like it when people come out with a new book because, you know, it's all so much excitement involved in it. And tell us about your book.
So the title is Fierce Light. It's a collection of persona poems illuminating 36 great women from world history.
Wow.
So it's based on research, and then I interpreted their lives and work and wrote a variety of styles and took pains to write about women from different time periods and continents and professions.
Wow.
So it is published by Future Cycle Press. It's obtainable on Amazon and from the publisher, and it's available in both print and digital editions. So I'm just thrilled. This is a dream come true.
That's so exciting. And when did you start thinking you wanted to write?
I've always written. I wrote as a child. Yes, I began to be published in my early 20s, and so I've had my poems and plays appear in about 50 publications, but only now do I have my first book. And I was made to understand that probably what was lacking was an arc. It needed to be about something. So I was inspired by Patricia Smith's Blood Dazzler, which was so powerful and moving. A series of persona poems about Hurricane Katrina from the perspective of the hurricane. And I thought, well, what do I care passionately about? And there were a number of topics which I would have gladly written on, but I've spent almost 4 decades also as an elementary school teacher. So a few years ago, when I was talking to my class, I held up our social studies book and said, what do you notice about the U.S. presidents? And for roughly 20 minutes, the students said, well, 5 of them have mustaches and 2 of them have the same last name, and they went on and on. And I said, finally, I'm surprised that no one said these are all men. And then the children just said, well, of course they're all men. Girls can't be president. Only men can do important things. So that was the challenge then, and I felt that my efforts to educate and inspire needed to go on and beyond the classroom. And so that's when I realized this had to be an arc that bent towards justice. And
my gosh.
So that's how this all began.
So before you got into your book,
yes,
what was your play about?
Oh, well, I had written a play actually for my students to perform. So then I submitted it to Plays magazine, and it was accepted and published. So I've written some other plays. One had a staged reading a few years ago, and I have another that's in its second draft at this point, but I'm concentrating most recently on poetry exclusively. So
that's fantastic.
But now that I'm retired, I have more time to write. So
you're retired,
yes.
So young. How did that happen?
Well, it was time. 36 years was long enough, and yeah, I wanted to spend more time as a writer, and especially promoting this book, because I really feel it is important that people know there are myriad great women from all over the world who have accomplished incredible things, and we don't know about them. And in the course of writing this book, it was a process of discovery, especially when I'd realized I don't have any South Pacific Islanders. I need someone from South America. I only have one person from Asia. And then I would do the research, and I could have written about so many women. It was really hard to limit it to just 36.
I know.
After I did some reading on the internet, then I would procure the best biographies I could find out about, and read an autobiography if she had written one, and if possible letters and interviews. So I learned so much through this.
I think doing the research is really fun. I like to do that. And it's so fascinating that your book and my book both are about women that aren't known and aren't
Yes.
lauded for what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Mine started in like Pilgrims and goes up to the Revolutionary War, and I've got all sorts of women that nobody knows anything about. So it's a lot of fun. It's just.
I look forward to reading it.
Yeah.
I will enjoy
Well,
that.
I'm gonna read this one too. So what have you been doing to sell the book?
Well, I've been doing readings throughout the valley. I'm teaching workshops in writing persona poetry. I was on the radio a couple of times, and so I would like to be a guest lecturer in college classrooms, and hopefully have my book on recommended reading lists.
Perfect.
Because it is grounded in so much research, and I was very fortunate. Future Cycle Press has just been so wonderful to work with. I have a section at the back with notes, so there's a little bit of information about each woman.
Oh, could you read that for us?
Well, certainly. For example, here's the poem Veriditas. When Hildegard von Bingen was 7 years old, her parents gave her to the Diesebodenberg monastery, where she lived as an anchoress. Elected magistra in 1136, she founded 2 convents while writing her visionary theology, poetry, music, letters, morality play, and texts on medicine and science.
Wow.
In 2012, Pope Benedict XVI recognized Hildegard as a saint and proclaimed her a doctor of the Universal Church.
Wow.
So the poem itself I wrote a vision. I tried whenever possible to write in a poetic form that would mirror the time, or utilize the language. And like here's Barbara Strozzi, a Venetian musical composer who lived 1619 to 1677. So I wrote an Italian sonnet for her.
Wow.
And here's Murasaki Shikibu, the first novelist in the whole world, yes, who lived about 973 to 1014, and because she was Japanese, I wrote linked haiku.
Oh, I have her book.
Oh, isn't it beautiful?
Oh,
yeah,
I love it.
I studied it in college. So here's a ballad because Margaret Ann Bulk. When I Googled first woman doctor, and this is a woman who, in the 18th century, disguised herself as a man in order to attend university in Edinburgh, and then signed up with the British Army and performed the first successful cesarean in which the woman and the child survived. And after her death, it was,
this is
except they
amazing.
didn't want this to be made public, and her records were sealed for more than 100 years. So I've just had, and it's a ballad. Sometimes I even sing it at my readings. So, but I've had.
I can't wait to read it. Really, I can't. And did you want to tell anybody any special place, or just Amazon enough?
Amazon, and also Future Cycle Press, the publisher.
Cycle Press.
Yes. So.
Okay. And what is this?
Oh, these are just notes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I want to make sure we cover everything for you, because it's a fantastic book and it's a fantastic
thank you.
idea, and especially to me, because I'm just all for giving women honor for who they are, and what they do. I mean, it's unbelievable how they've been ignored.
I know. And I was shocked as a teacher once I realized that even in 2015, my students still had this preconceived notion that men were supposed to do anything and everything great, and they actually said women need to stay home and have babies. So I then looked at our social studies text, the state-adopted text, and I went to the index and I counted the names of men that appeared therein and women, and it was 83% men and 17% women, who had at most a passing mention, often as the wife of someone. So I felt, gosh, our books are so necessary.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that in. I'm just excited. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you so much.
And now she told you where to get it. You can get it right off Amazon. and get it and read it and learn more about these fantastic women.
Thank you again so much,
Okay,
Carol. It's been
thank you,
such a
honey.
pleasure.
We'll be right back.